So this weekend we are going to another pay-per-view card with UFC 316 headlined by Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley in their rematch, and also we have the women's bantamweight title on the line as well, with Julianna Pena defending against Kayla Harrison. I hope that this card is a lot better than the card that we just got, because of course we just had a UFC Fight Night Klein versus Gamrot, I guess you could call it, because of course Macy Barber pulled out on the day of the fight, and we only had 9 fights in total for that card. We actually lost a lot of fights the week of, and then we got a lot of rebookings for this card. So there's actually quite a few short notice fights on this card, but it's going to be taking place in front of a crowd. It should be much better than whatever that UFC Apex event was meant to be. And I do think that we should open up this video with a moment of silence for those that paid for tickets to that UFC Apex event. So with that being said, those guys that just got scammed to watch those 9 fights, we get to watch this one here from home. I think this is going to be a good card. Of course, there are already a few bets up on the board by Jacob, Angelo, and BetSam on the We Want Picks website. If you do sign up using the code ARTEM and the link in the description below, you will get 10% off your first membership, and I also do get a commission from that. I also do have affiliate links to a couple of sports books such as BetUS and BetOnline, which are in the description of my video as well. A full disclaimer as well before I do get into my predictions. I do have exams coming up in the next week or two, and I do understand that there is a PFL card taking place in about a week and a half from the time that this is uploaded. I will do predictions for that PFL card, but they will be quite literally a couple of days before the card even takes place. So you heard it here first. I will be doing PFL predictions, but they will be taking place 2 days before the event does actually air. So I'm going to be a little bit tight on the schedule there, but they'll be getting done. Now, the first fight of the night here, I don't believe this is going to be the final order, but we have Andreas Gustafsson taking on Khaos Willams, and this is a very fun short notice matchup. Now, of course, Khaos Willams was meant to be fighting against a short notice opponent, and I will be honest, a short notice opponent that I had never even heard of, and that is pretty rare. You know, there aren't that many people out there that get signed, and I think I've genuinely never heard of this guy. And this guy, Tadavosian, he failed his physicals. I don't think that he was going to beat Willams anyway. And Gustafsson was, of course, meant to fight last weekend. Then got rebooked a couple of times against Trevin Giles. And I believe now against Khaos Willams for this card. For Gustafsson, though, as much as I do love him, as much as he is fun, as much as his fights are absolute bangers, as they are wars, this is a bad matchup for him. Now, if you do watch his tape, Andreas Gustafsson, and you do watch his Contender Series fight where he did dominate the strength game in the clinch, and he really did just dirty box up Pat Pitlick for most of the fight. If you do go back, though, he does have some somewhat concerning matchups. Now, this guy against Tony Lampinen, he went to war with Lampinen. Now, it was one of the more fun fights I've ever seen, but also he got hit a lot. And I think if you're getting hit by someone like Lampinen, you're probably going to get hit and hurt by someone like Khaos Willams. Now, the thing about Khaos, though, is I feel like one thing that I need to note now, especially, is just the fact that I think he's very inconsistent. Against Rolando Bedoya, this was a very bad performance for Khaos Willams. Khaos Willams arguably lost the fight. Bedoya was landing more volume, but Willams was arguably doing more damage with less. It was a bad performance. He didn't look good. But then he went out there and he knocked out Carlston Harris. He looked great. He looked awesome. He looked like the guy that we know him as. And then against Gabriel Bonfim, personally, I don't think there's that much shame in losing to Bonfim, to be honest. But Khaos Willams, he can be a little bit hit or miss, but when he is hit, he hits hard. He does have a split decision loss to Randy Brown. I thought he won. He knocks down Randy Brown a couple of times. I think Khaos Willams, though, in this matchup, I think Gustafsson is there to be hit, and I think that if Khaos Willams does land on Gustafsson, I think Gustafsson's going to get hurt, and I think he's going to get knocked out. So I'm going to pick Khaos Willams here to win by KO. He's minus 200 in this matchup. Much more difficult fight for both guys from the original scheduled matchups. Mederos now fights against Mark Choinski. Now, of course, Mark Choinski is the champion of Anthony Pettis FC, which is a regional show that I actually do rate pretty highly. I think that Teruto Ishihara was on their first ever card that was broadcast on UFC Fight Pass. That was pretty awesome. But Choinski's their champion. He became the champion defeating John Simon. And I will be honest, This win hasn't aged that well. John Simon has lost quite a few fights in a row, but John Simon does have a win over Luis Pena, who is a former Ultimate Fighter and UFC fighter. So a pretty good win there for Choinski. And then aside from that, I will say I'm not really taking on the best competition, but he is looking pretty good doing it. Most of his wins are in the first round. Most of his wins are by submission in the first round. Choinski in his fight against Simon actually did show a lot of striking, but I will be honest, I was pretty disappointed in his most recent fight against Ramirez, where although he did win the fight in 3 minutes in first round submission fashion, if you do watch it, the time period that was spent, the 90 seconds that was spent on the feet, Ramirez was pressuring Choinski and was landing a couple of pretty nice shots. A lot of little right hooks and right uppercuts were landing. And I don't really like that visual when I go into a matchup against MarQuel Mederos, because what MarQuel Mederos does best, in my opinion, is his boxing. He's got pretty fast hands. He's got pretty good pressure. Now Mederos, I will admit, there is a couple of problems that I think a lot of people have with him. Cardio is one of them, and another one is his striking defense isn't the best. But I don't think that Choinski has shown that he hits hard enough on the feet to really give Mederos too many trouble on the feet. So it just comes down to the grappling in this one here, because Choinski, when he gets a takedown, he is actually a position over submission first fighter. Although he's got a lot of first round subs, he wants to control the top position. He wants to look for an arm triangle choke from full mount, from control. Otherwise, he does have a lot of rear naked choke wins as well. But MarQuel Mederos, he has shown good takedown defense so far. He showed good takedown defense against Isa Azakov. He showed decent takedown defense against Quinones and Hubbard. And I do think that this is a similar stylistic matchup to the Hubbard fight, except Mederos is going to have a size advantage and Choinski's here on short notice. I do think that we do see Mederos defend the takedowns and find success on the feet. And I am going to pick MarQuel Mederos to win this fight by knockout. Mederos is a -240 favorite at the time of me recording this video. Now we have Quillan Salkilld taking on Yanal Ashmouz, and the first thing I'm going to say is these odds are pretty nuts. Now I do understand that there are a lot of people really high on Quillan Salkilld. I thought he had a fantastic Contender Series performance. I think he had a fantastic UFC debut. Whether or not you think it was controversial, he got a TKO victory in about 20 seconds over Anshul Jubli, and he's looked pretty good so far. There's not really any reason to doubt Quillan Salkilld, and even more importantly, he's got a couple of wins on his record now that have aged incredibly, because he just defeated Don Marfan, who just took the O off Yuji Yannick Ifovega, who was 11-0 going into that matchup. Now, Quillan Salkilld, I would consider him to be a pretty technical boxer that does wrestle on occasion as well. He did actually wrestle Gage Young quite a lot, but what I was most excited about Quillan Salkilld when I was watching his regional tape was the boxing technique. I think he is a very good boxer, and I do like to see him strike quite a lot. Yanal Ashmouz, I would say, is a little bit more of a brawler. He does remind me of Trevor Peake in a way. You know, he does come forward, he's going to throw hooks, he's going to throw bombs. The one loss on his record comes to Chris Duncan, in which he broke his arm in the first round, and surprisingly was able to make it pretty competitive still then. And then after that, he did beat, of course, Trevor Peake, who I did just mention. Ashmouz has been using some wrestling recently, but I do consider him to be a guy that throws with a lot of power. I think in this matchup, though, Salkilld is the more technical striker, and I do think that Salkilld should be able to win the fight by decision. A -550 favorite right now. Personally, I don't fully agree with those odds. I do know, and a lot of people in Australia will disagree with that. I know a lot of people are high on him, but personally, I think that -600, -550 for Salkilld, we're getting a bit wide. Azamat Murzakanov versus Brendson Ribeiro. I think that Murzakanov wins. This is a very big step down in competition for him. Murzakanov so far in his career, he's got a good manager. He's got a very good manager, because he's 36 years old. He's just beaten, in my opinion, a pretty good stylistic matchup for him. And now he's got Brendson Ribeiro, who I do know is short notice. He was meant to fight Johnny Walker and my GOAT, Nikita Krylov. But Brendson Ribeiro on short notice, this is a good matchup for Murzakanov. Now, Brendson Ribeiro, though, a little bit of a surprise for a lot of people. In fact, myself as well. I don't rate Brendson Ribeiro that highly. He beat Kaya Machado, and then he just beat Diar Nergazai by submission, and that was a very disappointing, a very dark day for me, I will be honest. I had to fight some demons after that one, because I did have Diar Nergazai and multiple parlays. But anyway, Brendson Ribeiro, he's just a really strong striker that doesn't have very good takedown defense, in my opinion, and also doesn't have very good striking defense. Murzakanov is a striker. He is a guy that we have seen have bad performances in the past, like tough on and Chukwi. He had to get the comeback in that one. But I think that we're going to see Murzakanov go out there. I think we're going to see Murzakanov go out there and beat Brendson Ribeiro here. I would be quite surprised if Ribeiro can knock out Murzakanov. But, I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. I think Murzakanov should be able to get it done on the feet. He's a more technical striker, and he should be able to wrestle as well. And now we have Ju Sang-yu taking on Jeka Saragih. This is a good matchup for Ju Sang-yu, despite him getting a first round knockout win over Masuto Kawana in this last fight. Ju Sang-yu is a wrestler. He's got a very interesting wrestling style. He does use a lot of trips, he uses a lot of single legs, and he does use a lot of judo throws as well to take opponents down and get control. Now, he has shown one-shot power on the feet. He knocked out Masuto Kawana in one punch. Kawana was coming in. Ju Sang-yu just fired a right cross straight down the middle, and Kawana dropped and he was out. It was pretty nuts, and he's actually got a couple of wins by that exact same method, which is quite impressive. And we all know, and we all love Jeka Saragih, the first Indonesian fighter to come over into the UFC. He did lose to Anshul Jubli, our favourite, our king, our GOAT, but he's still got the contract anyway, and honestly, he's a lot of fun to watch. He did beat Lucas Alexander by knockout, which is just a nuts thing to think about looking back at it, and then he did give Weston Wilson a win in the UFC. And you know what's also crazier? Alice Ardaline has a win in the UFC now, but Jeka Saragih, very, very good striker. I don't think that this can be underrated. Jeka Saragih is a ridiculously dynamic and powerful, fast striker. I think his striking is very, very good. The problem is he lacks fight IQ, and he's got no grappling whatsoever. I think if he was just a little bit better at grappling and also just had a little bit more fight IQ, more importantly, he would have beaten Weston Wilson in that fight. I think Ju Sang-yu, as long as Ju Sang-yu doesn't mess around on the feet against Jeka Saragih, he should be able to get the takedowns. And from there, I think that Jeka Saragih doesn't actually offer that much on his back. I think that we're going to see you get a ground and pound TKO or find a submission in this matchup. Sergey Spivak takes on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Now, how far has Sergey Spivak fallen? I am a little bit upset to see Spivak in this position. At one point, we were talking about Spivak maybe being next in line for a title shot. The heavyweight title situation is a total mess, but Spivak, he has had opportunities to put himself in those conversations. You know, he had a fight against Cyril Gane in the main event, of course, in which he looked terrible. But then he beat Tybura, got the shot against Almeida, who's also in there in the heavyweight title conversations. What is going on between Aspinall and John Jones? It seems like John Jones is never going to fight again. But we've got Spivak versus Cortes-Acosta now. A big step down in competition, in my opinion, for Spivak. Cortes-Acosta, he's a boxer, and I think that's really all he offers. He has been wrestling recently. He did show against Despain that he is willing to wrestle. That wasn't a fun fight to watch by any means. And then after that, he did knock out Ryan Spann. I don't know what Ryan Spann does in this point in his career, but we're talking about Waldo Cortes-Acosta here. Cortes-Acosta, I don't believe, will be able to defend the takedowns of Spivak, and I do think that Spivak's striking isn't great, but I think it's probably good enough to at least deal with what Cortes-Acosta is going to try and bring to him. I think we see Spivak get the takedowns. It wasn't that long ago, or maybe it was, that we saw Spivak absolutely ragdoll Derek Lewis, and that was just a shocking performance, and I think that Spivak, surely he can do something similar again. I think Spivak gets it done. I think he wins here. Is he the underdog? Tapology had him on even odds. I cannot see it. This is awkward. No, Spivak is minus 120 right now. A very slight favorite there for Spivak. Wang Tiong is now going to be fighting on Ariane Delipsky de Silva. As long as Wang Tiong can keep this fight on the feet, I think that she's fine. I am a little bit upset, I will be honest, that she lost to Gabriela Fernandez. If you watch that fight, she hurt Fernandez, got way too aggressive. Fernandez ended up catching her, dropped her, ended up getting the submission. Very sad situation for me, who was a believer in Wang Tiong. I think that Wang Tiong is someone that at one point genuinely could have maybe been the Alex Pereira to the Israel Adesanya. Wang Tiong, if you guys don't know, has won a fight against Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing. The storyline was really there, but we'll see what she can do here against Ariane Lipski de Silva. Ariane Lipski, of course, we do know is someone that does... I just hit my mic. That's probably so loud. I'm sorry. Has got a lot of finishes, a lot of first round finishes, a lot of submissions, but I don't think that against Wang Tiong she's going to be good enough at striking. And as long as Wang Tiong's takedown defense is good enough, I think that she's fine. I know I'm going to get comments saying that I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly. I'm not. If you watch her Road to UFC fight, the commentators there always do a pretty good effort into pronouncing the name correctly, so I copied them. Anyway, I think Wang Tiong does win this one here. Now we can move on to Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. This is a good matchup for Van, and the odds are reflecting it. You're just not going to get good odds on Joshua Van anymore, guys. The betting odds really have been starting to sway in his favor. He just had a very good performance against Ray Saruya, in which he was able to defend a ridiculous amount of takedowns, and Saruya is a very top prospect. I don't think that the fact that Van was able to deal with Saruya pretty easily in the second and the third round should sway you from the fact that Saruya is a talent in his own right. And that's just credit to Van for looking good in that matchup. He got it done, was the more well-rounded fighter. And now taking on Bruno Silva, stylistically, I think this is a good one for Van. Van has, of course, lost to a stylistic matchup that wasn't good for him against Charles Johnson. And in my opinion, a stylistic matchup for Van that is not good is someone that has a size advantage over him, and or someone that can take him down and hold him down. And we haven't really seen that from Joshua Van in the UFC so far. We have seen that he can defend takedowns very, very well. And here's the thing. He's now got an opponent who does not have a size advantage over him. In fact, for probably the first time in Joshua Van's UFC career, Van and Silva will be somewhat evenly matched in size. Now, I do believe that Silva is still going to be a little bit bigger. He does have like a pretty big build for a guy that is 5'4", and Van is quite small even at 5'5". But we just saw Silva get smoked by Manel Kape. And we saw him get smoked by Manel Kape in a way that he was slower. And what is Josh Van the best at? Josh Van is the best at being a fast boxer at 125 pounds. He's one of the fastest strikers in the division. We just saw Silva lose to someone that was too fast for him. I think that Joshua Van is going to be too fast for Bruno Silva. Now, you do need to respect a couple of things about Silva. Silva can wrestle. I don't think good enough to just take down and hold down Van. If Ray Saruya, the 2021 junior Asian champion, freestyle wrestling champion, can't do it, then I don't think that Bruno Silva can do it. But on the feet, Silva's got a lot of power. He knocked down Tyson Nam. I think he was the first person in Tyson Nam's career to knock him down. But yeah, Bruno Silva, I think that he's just going to be too slow for Van. I think Van gets it done. I think he has a good performance. I don't think he gets a finish, but I think he does have a good performance against a pretty solid veteran at this point in Bruno Silva. We can move up to Patchy Mix taking on Mario Batista. I think that Patchy Mix wins this fight. I think that Patchy Mix coming into the UFC is an incredible thing. It is worth noting it's on short notice, and Patchy Mix is massive for 135 pounds. It is not going to be an easy matchup, an easy weight cut for him, I should say. I think matchup wise, it actually does work out pretty well for Mix, but you do need to consider the fact that this is short notice, and Mix, I just don't want to understate it, genuinely does need to cut a lot of weight to make 135. He is a very big guy for this weight class. He is, of course, coming over from Bellator, so maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with him, but at one point, I genuinely believed that Patchy Mix was the best, the single best bantamweight on the planet. When he knocked out Ralphion Stotts and Sean O'Malley was the champion at the time, I did say I think that Patchy Mix can beat Sean O'Malley. I still believe, actually, I'll put it out there, I still believe that Patchy Mix can beat Sean O'Malley. Can he beat Umar Nurmagomedov, Merab Dvalishvili? I don't know. Can he beat Mario Batista? I think so. The reason why I think he can beat Mario Batista is because we've seen Mario Batista struggle in similar stylistic matchups before. Damon Blackshear fought this guy on 1 week's notice. He fought someone else, won by Twister in the first round, and then fought Mario Batista the week afterwards, and gave Mario Batista a very tough fight in that one there, in which Batista needed to defend takedowns against a very big guy at 135 pounds. We have seen Mario Batista struggle against very big wrestlers for this weight class, and that is what Patchy Mix is. He's a 5'11", massive guy for the weight class. He's always had fantastic BJJ. He's always had decent wrestling. The striking, in my opinion, has always been a bit of a letdown for him, and that's where Mario Batista is going to hold an advantage in this matchup. But I think that Mix, we've seen the striking come along. He just knocked out Ralphion Stotts 2 years ago. He's had contract issues with PFL, a tour for a long time, so he hasn't been that active. And Unfortunately, I will admit this was a bad performance against Magomed, but stylistically, this isn't a stylistic matchup. This is like a Merab Dvalishvili stylistic matchup that we will probably have to worry about at another point. Batista did just beat one of my favorite fighters of all time, Jose Aldo, who I think also just got rolled by Zahabi, but we move on, and in a way that Batista just clinched against Aldo. I mean, you can't just do that, man, seriously, but Batista has a lot of talent. Before the Aldo fight, he was a guy that was a lot of fun to watch. I just think that as long as Batista needs to box up Mix to win this fight. He needs to knock out Mix to win this fight, in my opinion, or at least land enough volume on the feet. I think that Mix gets the takedowns. Long story short, I think Mix is the better grappler. I think Mix finds a submission in this matchup. I actually think that this stylistically is actually an opportunity for Mix to get a finish. I'm very happy that he's in the UFC. I think he can go quite far. Now Vicente Luque fights against Kevin Holland. I think that this is a fight which Kevin Holland should win, right? I mean, here's the problem. You can't trust Holland. I actually picked Kevin Holland, I think, to beat Gunnar Nelson. I know a lot of people were on Nelson in that matchup. But I was on Holland, and I went with Holland, and I didn't really regret it, you know? So he won. But you know what I do regret? Picking him to beat Reina Dorita. And you know what else I regret? Picking Bo Nickel to beat Reina Dorita. Yeah, pretty bad pick. Adia just really kind of showing out. But Kevin Holland, we know what Kevin Holland wants to do, and that is strike. He's a pretty solid striker. He's a very difficult striker to deal with. I mean, we saw Jack Della Maddalena somewhat struggle to pick apart Holland, even though, you know, if you actually watch that fight, JDM was able to pressure Holland and just box him up against the cage pretty easily. But, I mean, people watched that happen and saw the split decision and thought that he couldn't do the same to Bilal. I don't know. But anyway, Vicente Luque versus Holland. I think if anyone's going to win a striking fight, I think it is going to be Holland. At this point, I've been quite sad watching Luque fight. Now, Luque was never really my favorite fighter in the world, but I will say I have had some incredible hits on Luque in the past. The Stash Choke run that he went on truly was legendary. And then he hit another one against Temba Garembo, which is nasty. But I just think for Luque, you know, he's coming off a brain injury that he had a couple of years ago before he fought Rafael dos Anjos. That was very concerning. And I'm always going to be concerned about that. Luque's come out and said he doesn't like getting hit hard. He's had a brain injury. Kevin Holland isn't the guy that's just going to knock people out with one punch, in my opinion, anymore. I know he's done it before, but I don't think he's just the guy that's just going to knock him out in one punch. But Kevin Holland does hit hard when he does land his shots pretty clean. And this is going to be a striking fight. I know that Luque can grapple, but Luque just doesn't go out there and shoot takedowns like Gunnar Nelson was trying to do. You know, I think that Kevin Holland in this fight should be able to keep it on the feet. I think he gets it done. Another decision, I think. You know, Holland, he could knock him out, though. That's the thing. Luque's chin, like, it's not really there anymore. I'm going to go with Holland decision. That's the pick. Let's move on. Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. I will be honest, Joe Pyfer probably is the most unlikable fighter on the roster right now. Just every time this guy tweets, every time this guy opens his mouth, it's just some sort of bullshit every now and then. Like, it's just unbelievable at this point. However, I think this is a good matchup for him, and I do believe he knocks out Gastelum. Gastelum has not been... I was going to say he's never been knocked out, and that is true. He's never been knocked out. I think Israel Adesanya came pretty close to doing it. I think Jared Cannonier, if I recall correctly, came pretty close to doing it. He landed a massive hook that dropped Gastelum, or at least put him on his knee. They come pretty close to doing it. But I just think that in this matchup, although Joe Pyfer has shown that he doesn't really deal well with people that can establish a good game plan against him, like Jack Romanson, Gastelum ain't gonna do that. Gastelum's career, like, it's just been a mess. He's a welterweight that, you know, just literally, I know it's like easy for me to say, I know that you guys make fun of me, but he quite literally is a professional athlete that just couldn't put the buffet down, man. Like, this guy training every day. Do you guys understand how much food you need to eat when you are burning hundreds of calories every single day to not be able to, like, maintain a decent body weight? Oh my god, like, Gastelum, he just could never make 170 pounds. He never even tried. I mean, he tried recently, but I don't think he actually tried to do it. And now he's back at 185. Gastelum, how is he going to beat Joe Pyfer? I think he's going to have to wrestle here, and I think that Joe Pyfer is going to have a very distinct size advantage over him. I think Joe Pyfer is going to hit a lot harder, and I think that Joe Pyfer hits hard enough to knock out Gastelum at this point in his career. Now, I do know that prime Jared Cannonier couldn't do it in 5 rounds. I'm well aware of that. But Joe Pyfer's a little bit different to Cannonier. Cannonier needs to close the distance, he needs to box to land his big shots, and that's what Gastelum wants to do. Pyfer can land from range. He's got a big size advantage here, 6'2", 75-inch reach. I think the style just makes sense for Pyfer to land something big from range. I think he gets it done. As much as Pyfer has really kind of gone in my bad books, I think he does knock out Kelvin Gastelum. I think he gets it done by KO. And now we can move up to Julianna Pena versus Kayla Harrison. I think Kayla Harrison wins this, man. And I will be honest, ever since I personally have started to really pay attention to, I guess you could say, the bodybuilding scene. I've been watching a lot of Greg Doucette, a lot of Will Tennyson, a lot of YouTube, man, on going to the gym, because recently I have started going to the gym and taking my my gym pretty seriously. And I will say I have watched a little bit of Coach Colton, and I think that you could potentially make the opinion that Harrison is displaying some side effects of some substances, and I think that we are seeing that. I mean, I've always been a little bit obtuse to stuff like this, I will be honest, but I think that this is really like a pretty clear case where I think that potentially Harrison is just a little bit stronger than she should be, and I think that Harrison in this matchup should be able to use that strength to a lot of success. Harrison, of course, a gold medalist in judo. She beat Ronda Rousey in judo. That's her big kind of come-up story, I would say. Absolutely dominated PFL. And now she's coming to the UFC at 135 pounds. And I think she's looked pretty good so far. I was very excited when the UFC signed her. And she's gone up. She's gone from strength to strength, I think. And I genuinely do believe she beats Pena in this matchup. And I think she finishes Pena. And I would love to see Nunes versus Harrison. I think that's the fight to do. That's been the fight to make for a long time. Let's do it. 135, 145. Let's just make it happen. She beat Vieira. Not the most exciting performance, I think, but she did show that she can go 3 rounds. She was a little bit tired towards the end there, I will admit, but, you know, she's cutting a lot of weight, subbed Holly Holm, and beat the great Aspen Ladd. But Harrison against Julianna Pena, I would be very surprised if Pena was able to just go out there and box up Kayla Harrison. Now, Pena's striking is very, very sad to see. I thought she lost to Raquel Pennington as well. I'll put that out there. It does hurt my eyes. It really does. And honestly, Harrison might find success in this matchup on the feet. But Harrison's got a big size advantage here. I think Harrison's stronger than Pena. I've seen Harrison take down fighters that I think don't have the takedown defense of Pena. We just saw Amanda Nunes dominate Pena on the ground. We saw Raquel Pennington find a lot of success against Pena on the feet. I think we're going to see Harrison go out there, get the takedown on Pena, and get a finish. Now, Pena is a very good grappler. She does have very good BJJ. She does have very good submission ability. She is going to be tricky on bottom when Harrison is trying to control her, trying to get her ground and pound off. But I think that this definitely is going to kind of be a case of, you know, when John Jones got that takedown against Stipe in round 1, and he got all of those ground and pound shots off. I think we can see that against Pena. I think Harrison gets it done. I don't think this goes 5 rounds. I really don't. I think Harrison is going to get the finish against Pena, and I think she's going to get it done and win the fight by, I'm going to say, ground and pound TKO. And now we've got the main event, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. Let me open up my my water bottle. Okay, so I picked Sean O'Malley to beat Merab Dvalishvili the first time, you know. And the more that I think about it, because I was considering just picking Sean O'Malley just to run it back, just to double down. But I just don't think that he loses to Merab, that he beats Merab, sorry. And I do struggle with this pick a lot, because I'm very tempted to pick Sean. I still believe that stylistically Sean O'Malley is one of the worst matchups for Merab. However, I said that when I picked Umar to beat Merab as well. I said that there's no way that Merab is able to just take down and control Umar and then beat him on the feet as well, because I considered Umar to be good enough to defend Merab's takedowns and be good enough on the feet to beat Merab as well. But the thing about the Sean O'Malley matchup, and this is what you need to consider, this is like what a lot of people, I think, in the situation of Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad had, was I think a lot of people thought or remembered the Leon Edwards loss to Bilal Muhammad as a dominant loss, when in reality, it wasn't a very close fight, but it was a 3-2 decision, which if Leon Edwards is a little bit more active in the first round, he could have arguably won. And a lot of people were picking picking Bilal based on the fact that they thought that he just dominated Leon Edwards. He should do the same to JDM. And I picked JDM. I had $850 on JDM in that matchup. But in this one though, it's the same sort of story. And the thing about Sean O'Malley was when I picked Sean O'Malley to win, I said I think that Sean O'Malley is going to need to win by knockout in the first 3 rounds, because if he doesn't get it done, Merab's got too much cardio. He's just going to keep going. He's going to beat Sean O'Malley at Merab's best asset. He's got the good cardio, he's got the good wrestling. But Sean O'Malley was able to find success later in the fight. It was Sean O'Malley that was starting to take over in the 4th and the 5th round. So based on that logic, O'Malley kind of surprised me and surprised a lot of people. But I think stylistically, it's just a bad matchup for O'Malley. You know, he is a pure striker. He doesn't really... I know he's got subs. I know he can grapple. I know he's got BJJ tournaments under his belt. I know that's what he was doing pretty much the entire time he was suspended for the green lettuce. You know what I mean? But Merab, like, he just beat Umar, and he looked pretty good doing it. And as much as a lot of people are coping, Umar won, Umar didn't win that fight. I picked Umar to win that fight. Umar didn't win that fight. I think that Merab beats Sean O'Malley here. I don't really know what else to offer, to be honest. I haven't really said a good technical breakdown of this fight, but I think that Merab just gets the takedowns. I think he's just going to come forward. I think he's just going to be a marauder. He's going to shoot 30 takedowns. He's probably going to get 15 of them. And I think he just controls Sean O'Malley for at least 3 rounds, because that's all you need to do is get 3 rounds. Now, yes, let's not forget, O'Malley did find a lot of success when he was attacking the body late in the fight. And also, Jose Aldo found a lot of success against Merab Dvalishvili nearly 3 years ago. But still, Aldo was able to find success on the feet too. Do I want Sean O'Malley to win? I would say yes. But the thing is as well, I've been thinking about this too. Like, I would probably pick... Genuinely, I would very heavily consider picking someone like Petr Yan to beat Sean O'Malley at this point, you know? So yeah, I just don't know if I can convince myself that O'Malley can beat Merab. I know that's not a good breakdown, I do apologize for that, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Just straight up open and honest, I'm not going to be uploading for another week or so. I've got exams, guys, you know, it's stressful. It's a stressful time for me. I'll see you guys in the next video.